Let's talk about exits for a second. Let's come back to daily at the end. You've had a few exits. Which of them is like the most exciting for you? Let's dive into it.
Yeah, I think the most exciting one for me actually was the first one, which was the least valuable from a financial reward perspective. But my first startup was a company called Rally Song. So at the time,
Oh, I saw that.
yeah,
Actually.
it was. I was working at Microsoft, and I had a very comfortable job. I had like wiggled my way into a totally remote job back in like 2011 and 12, and I was making a couple $100,000 a year, which at the time for me was life changing because my family did not come from money, and I had a little bit of a career before that. But this was like I made it, But all the rest of my friends were going to Silicon Valley or joining Summit Series or moving to LA or whatever, and building these like change the world companies. And I just felt like somewhere in my heart that I felt like I found my people, and what I'm doing here at Microsoft is not my people. It's like not my calling. It's not what God put me here to do. I didn't quite know what that was. I just knew that that's the direction I needed to run to. So like, dude, it was in 6 months, my father passed away from cancer. I got married and I moved from Seattle, like my whole power base, home base, everything. And I moved to Venice Beach, California in a house with like 6 other entrepreneurs and 1 bathroom, 1 shower, 2 bathrooms. And then like I started this company with my friends called Rally Song. And like that company was amazing. We built like it was like a crowdfunding platform for musicians and artists to raise money for their favorite charities. And then we basically did like a draw system where for every dollar you donate is like a name in the hat. We pick one lucky name and you get this experience with the artist. So like we did like yoga with Jack Johnson, or like a private guitar session with the lead singer of the band Korn, or whatever, right? Like we did stuff with Imagine Dragons and a bunch of bands, and it was super fun. But man, we got left on the altar on the Series A. So we did great in the seed. We kind of hit all of our metrics. And then when we got to Series A, like I've never raised money. I worked at freaking Microsoft. We got lucky on our seed round. It was friends, family, and fools. Great vision, good team. Here's,
Friends, family, and fools.
But that Series A we got to, and we got clobbered, dude. Like the guy basically negotiated us until we had no more money. And then he ended up not doing the deal after we flew to Dallas and shook his hand and popped the champagne. And he bought one of our competitors instead. It was brutal. So that business, dude, wow. It I went out of business. I had to BK that business. And like, here's the thing. The day after I BK'd the business, it was super hot. I'm in Venice Beach. At the time, there's this thing going viral on the internet called the Ice Bucket Challenge. So if you remember the ALF Bucket Challenge.
Yeah, I remember
there's a huge drought in California. It's mega hot. And I'm in Venice. So I'm walking to the Venice Whole Foods, which is like just far enough for a lazy guy to Uber, but I'm kind of sulking. So I'm like, I'm walking, it's crazy hot. I get into this Whole Foods and like, I get myself some hot food from the hot bar. And then, I went into to get a cold drink, and, it's like, I wanted to get a really cold one. So I grabbed the drink that's like 3 back, that's deeper into the fridge. And I'm like, I'm hot. So I open it, I start drinking it. I go to check out, and dude, my credit card declines. So I have an open drink and hot bar food, which you can't return. So I'm just like making up an excuse, like, oh, I left my other card in my car. I'm like, there was no car and there was no other card. And so I just left. And man, that walk home was the longest walk I ever had. It was like miserable. At this time I'm in my early 30s. I'm basically living off my wife. I'm like something like $36,000 in debt. I'm not making several $100,000 a year. I'm broke. Like I'm straight up broke. I can't even buy food for myself. And, my mentor told me one time, he's like, hey man, like you're going to have wins and losses. And here's a piece of advice. Never sulk more than 24 hours and never celebrate more than 24 hours. Give yourself one day to feel all the pain and just get it out. And then when you have a big win, don't ride the high horse for too long. That's how you get cocky. Just have a big celebration, buy yourself a watch, and get back to work. So like, that's what I did, man. But that was my sulk day. And so the very next day, my boy Travis Steffen, who's my roommate, he had already at the time of this recording, I think he's had 9 exits. At this time, he'd only had like 4. He's like, hey, dude, like I'll drive you to Santa Monica, and we're gonna get like tuna burgers or whatever. Because at the time, I wasn't eating red meat. So we went there, and I had this idea. At this time, everybody's parents were like getting on Facebook, and everybody was running the Snapchat. And I was like, man, all these old people coming on Facebook, I bet you they have businesses. I was like, why don't we just start a social media agency? This could be super easy. It's like a little piece of what I was doing in my last company that we did really well. And then so we did, man. We went out, and I paid some Indian VA to scrape a bunch of we picked a niche and we scraped a bunch of contacts. We just started doing cold outreach. And we built this little scraper tool that would like scrape stuff off Twitter and repurpose that content for other people's accounts, kind of like high performing content. And we didn't start here, but we found this niche with like Christian faith-based medical practices. And dude, it just blew up, like we ended up making more money than I expected. I got myself out of debt and I rebounded. But at the time, like I wasn't looking for a lifestyle business. Like all my friends are building unicorns. It's a big deal. So I was like, and like I was so arrogant. I was like, this is never going to be a unicorn. We have to sell it. So here's, and this is a good lesson on selling companies. Like I didn't know how to sell a company. Travis did. Well, here's what happened, dude. One of our biggest clients ended up buying us, but not because of our revenue and not because of anything that we were doing with social media, really. We had this really long onboarding form that got to know everything, like your value system, like how you think, like deep psychology of the person and the company and the owner, so that we could reflect that in your social media. Well, I'll tell you why he bought us in a second, but first I want to tell you a story that's really important to exits. Have you guys ever heard the Rembrandt in the attic story? So imagine this is like the number one thing that I would recommend if anyone wants to sell their business, that they keep their eyes on this. Imagine you're going to go buy a house, right? Like you're going to go buy $1 million house, which nowadays doesn't really get you much, like in places where we live, but like $1 million house. Yeah. And let's say, the spread for the ask and the bids, because it's a hot market, maybe pushes it up to like 1.1 or 1.2, which is that's a pretty good boost. That's a 20% boost. So you go into this house, you're the last person to look at it, and you're like, hey, what's in the attic? And they're like, I don't know. No one's ever asked to go up there. And the owner hasn't really been up there in years. So you go, okay. And you go up in the attic and you're looking around and you look in the corner and there's this like easel with like canvas over it. So you go over there, you pull up the canvas of the tarp, you look under it. You're like, yo, that looks like a Rembrandt. They must be a fake. So you're like, hey, can I schedule another appointment? I want to bring my appraiser by. And you actually go get an art appraiser, someone that's an expert in fine art. And the fine art person goes in there and says, man, that's certified Rembrandt. Okay. You've determined it's a certified Rembrandt in the attic and you're the only one that knows about it. How much are you going to pay for that house? 1.3, 1.35? You're going to back up the Brinks truck. You're going to come in and offer 2 million and they're going to be like, this person's crazy. Give them the house. And then you're going to go flip that Rembrandt for like 50 or 10 or whatever it's worth, because that's how acquisitions work. When you're trying to sell your company, if you can make a market and get enough people to look at it, eventually someone's going to see some obscure capability that you've taken for granted. That's their missing piece. That's their Rembrandt in the attic. That's going to basically create enterprise value in their company to a level that you couldn't imagine. So anytime you're selling your business on like the net present value or the numbers of what you're producing right now, you are leaving money on the table. You don't have a big enough market for your offer being the company. So if you want to make the highest premium on an exit, you have to make the market. And you can work with brokers. You can do that on your own. There's lots of ways to do that. But my point is like you want to get enough people, because statistically, if you do, someone will see a Rembrandt in the attic. That's lesson one. Lesson two is you always sell the future. It's not about what you're doing right now. It's about how does 1 + 1 = 11? Right now, you're 1 and I'm 1, but you put us together, we're 11. So you got to think about how can this really accelerate what they're doing in their business and get that story in their head and really sell them on a future where everything works perfectly. We integrate and man, like your margins double and your enterprise value goes up like crazy or whatever it is, right? It's like, the other day, a few months back, there's like rumors and news that Google was thinking about buying HubSpot, both publicly traded companies. Google swallow HubSpot and burp like it was a big bite at lunch. No big deal, right? And buy them for a lot. Why would they buy HubSpot? Is it because they really want to get into the CRM game? No, they want the data. They want the real-time intent data inside that CRM. They want that real-time intent data because that data is super valuable in the world of AI. AI's whole game is who has the best proprietary data sets. There's a lot of data on HubSpot. Mm-hmm. Change that end user license agreement, and all of a sudden that data is getting fed into AI. Big deal, right? So, I don't think that I would measure. I'm not at Google. I don't talk to those guys. I don't know. And maybe Peter could ask his boy Eric. But like, my hypothesis is they were not buying them to get in the CRM business.
Damn, man. And so let me okay, well, hold on. Coming out, did you guys end up selling? Well, you guys sold Rider Strong, right? Or Rider
we sold that business. Yeah, we sold that business. This is my first exit.
What did you sell it for?
We sold it for just shy of $1 million, but like the exit price, what did matter? It got me back in the game, got my confidence back. But here's the Rembrandt to the guy that bought it. He bought it because he also had a business in the oil and gas space, and he wanted to give the social media services away at a super cheap price or free to his competitors, so they'd fill out the onboarding survey, because there's data in that onboarding survey that allows him to compete with them in the oil space, which makes a lot more money.
Wow.
Yeah, that was his Rembrandt. So it's just so how do you predict that stuff, man? Like,
bro, what the fuck? Like, yo, that was actually one of our questions.
Crazy.
Like, I mean, not to steal the mic for a sec, but I was thinking, bro, how does this exit game work? I mean, like, do you just wake up one day and say, hey, yo, I'm down to sell the business, I'm down to exit, let me go find a buyer? How does that work? Or do you get approached? And like, when you get approached, how does that whole thing work? How do you find buyers? How do you price it? Like, just give us, the quick 101 on how this whole game works. I'm really curious.
Yeah,
and like, how do these rounds get priced? How do you value these things? I know Rembrandt is like a nice theoretical thing, but from like a numeric standpoint, how do you actually price it? I'm curious.
Okay. I think I'll make an important distinction. Like I've realized that as an entrepreneur, there's different flavors of entrepreneurship, and when people ask me really behind closed doors, what do you do? I'm an entrepreneur, but I don't sell products and services. I sell businesses. I spend 3 to 5 years to build a business as an asset, and then I sell it. Why? Because in SaaS, SaaS valuations are down. SaaS AI valuations are not down, but SaaS valuations are down over from the historic peaks. But man, even when they're down, like I can still sell a company for 8x revenue. Now, it doesn't even have to be profitable. I can sell for 8x revenue. Show me a product or service that I could take out and get that kind of a lift from an investment perspective. So if we spend 3 or 4 or 5 years or longer, if necessary, to build a beautiful asset, a business that we'd be proud to buy, and then spend also that 3 or 5 years courting who we think would be an appropriate buyer, courting the appropriate middlemen, like the brokers and the bankers that make these deals happen, courting the right lawyers and the right centerpieces that can make those introductions, then now all of a sudden, like my job as building, that doesn't make my job of building products and services that hit in the marketplace and resonate. That doesn't make that easier. It's just I'm meta. So anytime I'm worried about like, oh, the funnel's not producing or there's this jam up in the business, like that's a couple layers down from where I'm operating at. I'm operating at like, how do I build a business, a brand, a story, and a set of numbers that would be like highly attractive to be purchased. So from day one, I'm like, all right, I need to keep my financials clean. A lot of startups are sloppy on the financials. They don't have a good bookkeeper. They couldn't produce the 3 standard reports if their life depended on it, or they'd take a whole bunch of time. There's all this cleanup. So everything we do is like, okay, get the financials tight. As soon as the money starts coming in, get the financials tight. Well, as soon as the money starts going out, have that paper trail. And then
that was actually, sorry to cut, that was actually Omid's story, and he'll tell it in a sec. He actually sold a business for a low 6-figure amount, but he fucked up. Like he did no accounting and no financial reporting for
5 years.
For 5 years, bro. So he had to go and backdate all this shit, and probably like ended up, being a little bit more conservative and modest on the numbers because he didn't want to lie and fub it.
I mean,
right, Omid?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And real entrepreneur that's like out, like no AE sales and marketing led entrepreneur wants to go back and have anything to do with looking at books from 5 years ago.